Why, hello there, class. You might be wondering why you're not seeing the face of Will Schick. That's because, to be honest, I just got a new monitor. It doesn't have a camera, so here we are. We're just going to focus on what you came for, which is Beast, and we're going to get this bad boy painted up today, and we're going to see how far we can get to him. I'm hoping that we can knock it out in an hour, but we're going to see where we get to. So, I'm going to be doing Gray Beast today. For those of you who know the long storied history of what does Beast look like, it's been all over the map. Obviously, our sculpt is very much based on the classic Jim Lee kind of 90s era Beast, the one that you've seen in a lot of different media. And I chose to use some options when building this Hank McCoy out. I gave him the glasses. I did not give him the book because I'm not Dallas and trying to paint fine script on stream. Not really going to be my jam. I'm not the guy who's going to do that. So I liked the combination of glasses and fists, like he's waxing really poetic and ready to go here. So with that, we're going to dive right in and get going on this fine fellow. I'll watch that and hope that the stream... All right. So here we go. So I'm going to start off with some rainy gray, and this is just going to lay down my quick base coat. So here's my rainy gray from scale 75. This is going to give us a nice kind of, it's got a little bit of green to it. It's going to give us a nice foundation to start. Of course, I zenith primed my beast, but we're not really going to use too much of the zenith prime today as we go. We're instead going to kind of, hopefully you've had a chance to check out the panel of play that we had for him. That was a lot of fun. He was an enjoyable character to develop and design, like all of the X-Men have been. Really like where he fell out in terms of his role within the Uncanny X-Men affiliation, and then just overall in terms of the game itself. Of course, as lovers of the comics will know, Beast is one of those characters who really, he gets around. He winds up on a lot of different teams. You know, his intelligent nature, he kind of always analyzes conflicts and the sides and what's going on, and it's led to him to be a part of a lot of different groups. And so that was another thing that we wanted to make sure to take a look at. It was kind of like where he has wandered and been a part of over the course of his long storied history as both an X-Man and just as a Marvel character in general. So again, this is just a really simple, quick base coat of that rainy gray. I did thin it out just a little bit with some water to make sure the paint flows really nice and smooth. I do kind of get to play with the idea that we have that zenith, so if my coats aren't super opaque, that's totally fine because we'll play with a little bit of that natural shading that the zenith prime gives me. And as we start adding washes and stuff that start to add the shade and get this beast more to his gray side, we'll be able to play with that as well. So probably not going to wind up doing the classic two thin coats for a solid base coat on this fella because I'm not super concerned with that. We're going to play with a couple other washes and highlights and things to get him built back up. And we're going to tone down a bit of the gray that's in, or the green that's in that gray to give it more of that classic beast look, but this is going to give us a nice warm, I wanted a warm kind of gray going on, so this rainy gray has those elements that give it kind of like a warm tone rather than like a cold blue tone or anything, because you could do something like that if you wanted to kind of keep that gray blue going on, that idea, but I really wanted to take this fella away from the more traditional blue and plop him more towards that alternate paint scheme, very unique, while still being heavily influenced by the source material and a really iconic moment in the character's history and development and all that stuff. And of course, we will integrate the classic blue and yellow for our beast so that he'll match up with our other three characters that we've done so far on the shorts. And that will tie everything together so it looks like a nice cohesive group on the tabletop. And it'll look like they jumped right off that comic page. I mean, obviously making every character ever is kind of the lofty goal. I think there are certainly exterior factors as well in terms of making sure that, you know, times change, attitudes change, all of that stuff, as the chat is asking about characters. And we also want to keep that in mind as we kind of look to the universe and what's there. But you can always reimagine characters in new ways, and I think that would be kind of part of that great partnership with Marvel, is talking about, okay, we've reached X, Y, or Z character, what are we going to do in order to kind of bring them into the modern age and make sure that they meet that modern sensibility and all that stuff. But sometimes you do need a very despicable character to go punch in the face. But I think honestly, you know, the greatest characters that stand the test of time and that make the Marvel Universe absolutely what it is are those characters that you can kind of empathize with, even if they are mostly evil. So I'm not sure if even our desire to hit all of the corners of the Marvel Universe means that we'll do characters who are just flat out, you know, sinister punching bags for anyone to go and kind of live a catharsis on. All right. So there's kind of our base coat of that rainy gray done. I'm going to go and we're just going to work on the shorts really quick. So I'm going to grab, this looks pretty good. So we're going to use some Mediterranean blue, which is a nice, bold, kind of primary blue color. And we're going to layer on that blue to the shorts. Again, these are just really simple base coats. We're not doing anything super fancy here. I'm not turning anything into a wash like we normally do. I'm just kind of hitting all these areas, and we'll wash it to do the shades. And we'll do some highlight up, and we'll play with some textures. And then I also get to kick off this week, because we missed last week. Dallas and I were traveling back to HQ to discuss all the exciting future stuff for Crisis Protocol and Atomic Mass Games at Asmodee North America. I have the first 3 of our staff picks from last month's challenge, which was Spider-Verse, or hashtag Painting Protocol Challenge. We asked you all to show us pictures of your favorite Spider-Verse stuff that you'd painted. We got some awesome entries, like so many good entries. Staff sat around, we picked some of our favorites, and I get to show off the first 3 of those. Dallas will close out those picks on his stream on Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific. And then I'm looking forward to seeing all of the spooky entries for this month's hashtag Painting Protocol Challenge, which, if you're unaware, you can paint something or just show off one of your favorite Marvel Crisis Protocol characters that you've done in something that is suitably spooky for Halloween. It might be the normal costume, might be a new costume, you might have done a special glow, anything like that. Post it on Instagram with hashtag Painting Protocol. And we're going to be going through those Halloween week and picking out some of our favorites as a staff. And then we'll be showing those off on the streams in November. So it's a fun way to kind of get together as a community, paint, show off what we're working on, have some fun artistic inspiration to play with or think about. And it's a highlight of my month every time to get to go through and just see all the awesome stuff the community is doing, be inspired, and want to dive off to my own stuff. All right, let's make sure that we got all of our blues covered, and then it looks like our gray is ready to go to the next step. So we have our blue pants, we've got our gray fur going on, and what we're going to do is we're going to make some choices to make sure that we get some nice contrast between the thick hair here and then kind of like the skin fur. And so we're going to play around with some shading and some different kind of tones of dark and light and all of that. And then we'll go through and we'll add some texture and really bring this guy to life. And see where we can get from to there. So What I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab one of the tools I use a lot on the stream, which is black glaze from Vallejo. So this is kind of like a really thick, gritty paste. It's almost like toothpaste. And so what you do is you cut that, you use that, and you use glaze medium from Vallejo, and then you can also use water. You can use inks as well if you want to kind of like smooth it out, but you want to thin it out quite a bit, depending on what you want to do. And I want to turn this into a kind of a wash. And we're going to use this to shade our grays, and it's going to bring our tone down. It's going to kind of cool things off a little bit, tone down some of that green. And it's going to help us start to build out that gray beast feel. I think I want that. So I'm going to use a little bit of black ink as well, just to kind of give it a nice richness of color. And a lot of the times I like to take just a drop of paint. So I'm going to take some flat black from scale 75. I like to just add that into this, because I think it helps overall with just kind of the overall colors, and it gives it that nice punch of color along with the black ink. All right, so I'm going to check this really quick and just make sure that we're at the consistency that we want. I think we're pretty good. Go in, we're just going to start laying stuff out. We'll hope we give that. So it's going on a little thick, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my brush, wet it down, and I'm just going to like thin it out. So sometimes you're going to notice that a lot of the times when you're doing washes and you're mixing them up, you have to kind of play it by feel, and it might be a little too strong. But you can always go back with a damp brush and kind of pull out the wash if it's coming on a little too thick. And so again, we're getting it a little strong, so I'm just going to come in. I'm going to use my damp brush. I'm going to pull it. I do want it to really like flow into those crevices and stuff down by the feet. And of course, this area should be darker anyway, so I'll let it be a little heavier down there. But I really just want this to tint the overall gray and then give me a little bit of shading effect in the shadows and stuff. But I don't want to dramatically change the tone down to a black. That's not what we're looking for here. So it's a little bit like blending a wash onto the miniature itself. And of course we run into areas where maybe our gray wasn't quite dry because we're working pretty quick. And so we just kind of like play with those as well. You can see how already we've got like this nice, there's some really nice fur texture that's already on the miniature in certain areas to help kind of sell the idea. We ate so much fried chicken with Simone, it's true. The chat is talking about our long week. That fried chicken was really good. I look forward to more fried chicken meetings. But yeah, so again, this wash is just picking out all of those nice textured areas, kind of giving us a basis for when we go back and we start to kind of sketch in our fur. So obviously, one of the interesting challenges when working on characters or any kind of miniature that is covered primarily in a fur, like Beast is here, or say a Werewolf by Night, or anything like that, any kind of character that is fur-centric, you can't do fur texture everywhere. It's actually, there's a fine, like salting a food, there's a fine balance of sculpted texture versus open area to make sure that the miniature is paintable, that it looks right, and that everything kind of comes through the way you want it to. And so what you can do as a painter in order to kind of sell that fur texture more is as you paint, you can go through and you can actually sketch in the texture using a really bright highlight and some quick strokes, and hopefully we'll get to the point where we kind of show off some of that. And we're going to create our own visual texture that will ideally emphasize all of the texture that's sculpted on there and make a really cool and compelling beast. So there's where we are right now with Beast. I just want to make sure that I don't have any big pools of color. of wash, but you can see how that's kind of coming through. And as that dries, it's going to tint things down. So we just want to make sure that we don't have any like huge pools. Obviously we wanted it to go down here in like the cracks and stuff, but I do want to be careful. If you let, especially washes or glazes that you've made yourself with a lot of glaze medium or mediums in general, kind of pool up, they'll get really thick and gross and they'll obscure everything underneath them and they'll be just not great. So it's important to watch that. Down there. All right. So let that dry. We're going to move over or back to our blues, I think. So that's still wet on the palette. We jump back in. Hit this area a little bit. So it's very likely that you'll get a couple of like areas of overspill from your blue to your gray. That's okay. So we still have some pretty wet paint. I'm going to grab my yellow ochre, which I really like to use Sahara Yellow as a base for my yellows. And I've used it for most of the X-Men that I've done so far. When trying to paint even a bright primary yellow, it's always best to start with something that's more of an ochre, so a yellow-brown effectively, as this is going to help cover better. And it'll give you that nice foundation to build your yellows up from, so you get a nice smooth result. All right. Whoop, I went totally off camera. Now I'm back. Now I'm back. So this will be like a 2 thin coats kind of thing. Also want to be kind of careful as I go around. Try to avoid that blue and that gray. But I will do a little bit of dark lining around the belt just to give some separation and stuff. So depending on what happens, it's okay. And this is the tricky part for camera. It's a little messy, but not too bad. There, because his knee kind of goes right into that belt. That's okay though. Call that good, and we can come back in and clean up. So there we kind of have our initial start going on here. And some might say like that's good enough, just finish up the base and everything else and call it good, do the glasses. And this would be a perfectly acceptable tabletop beast. We're going to keep going with him. We're going to take him a bit further. I'm going to move over and I'm just going to hit, while I wait for all that stuff to dry, because I want it to be good and dry so I don't pull up paint. We'll just dive ahead and we'll do the girder. So for that, I'm going to use dark steel. Oh, sorry, black metal. Black metal. Dark steel, which is called black metal, if you're looking for it in scale. We'll just go through really quick. Just being careful around the feet and stuff. And I'm not going to worry too much about making sure that every piece of this girder is covered. Because really the eye's not going to see too much of the inside, and as we wash it we're going to make it dark anyway. So if we miss a few spots, that's okay. Kind of just killing time watching paint dry, but getting other parts of the miniature done that are really important too. I feel like since Simone's in the chat today for like the whole thing, I might have to do those glasses in some bright color. Simone has these judgy glasses that she puts on during meetings. So kind of like an animal that can change color based on its emotions. The glasses will tell you how your meeting is progressing. Now Josh has some pretty fun stuff planned for the Facebook this week. So definitely be sure to pay attention to social media, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. We're going to have some cool reveals. X-Men obviously are next month. If any of you watching still aren't aware, although I feel like by this point it's probably pretty well known. November is our date. Celebrating that 1-year anniversary of Marvel Crisis Protocol, which is wild to think about that it only launched last year, because it feels like both one day has only passed, like we just did it, and yet also that we've been doing it for our whole lives. It's been a really fun experience. It's been an amazing year. And I've really been enjoying watching everybody play Vibranium Heist over the last couple of weeks. That's been really cool to watch. See that Killmonger has successfully liberated quite a bit of vibranium from the mines. Good for him. I'm usually on Team Killmonger. All about, getting that vibranium out there for the people. We got our girder pretty well done, and more importantly, I think our colors have dried. All right. Okay, so next I'm going to dive in, and just before we start working on the gray, I'm going to use a little bit of a blue wash, and I'm going to use the classic Inktense blue, not the cyan this time, because I want this to shade, so Inktense blue. It's fuzzy, but believe me, I'm going to use a little bit of glazed medium, some water. I'm just going to make out a quick wash. I'm going to put this over the blue areas, which look like they're mostly dry, although there might be a couple places where it's still wet, but that's okay. We'll play. We'll be fine. So again, we're just using this really quickly to do some quick shading for us. And normally, what I'd be doing at this point is I'd probably be working on a couple of different characters, just to give them enough time to dry, because when you're working with washes and stuff, it'll take a little bit longer than normal. But we want to take this boy as far as we can today, so that's what we're going to do. Right, so you see how that wash has already kind of deepened up our crevices and given us some nice depth. So with that done, we'll let that dry, and then we'll move back to the yellow belt. I think our beast is pretty close enough to dry so that we can start doing some sketching. All right, so I'm going to switch to a size 0 brush just because that's what I like, and it's currently probably one of my nicest brushes with a nice tip. But as long as you have a nice fine point, as you can see there, that's what you really want for this. I'm going to take my base color, which was that rainy gray. I'm going to grab a highlight color, which for this, I'm going to go with, I'm going to use this Nakar, which is kind of like a nice off-white, but it has a little bit of that green tinge, so I think it'll work well with our rainy gray. And I'm just going to mix out some highlights, and then I'm going to go through, and I'm going to start adding some fur textures to this guy. And now if I wanted to, I could certainly do some more highlighting and stuff, but we're looking for kind of a faster tabletop. Just we want to play with Beast and make this guy look really good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to think about how that fur moves, and I'm just going to try to sketch on little fur lines. And so I'm just coming in and just kind of lightly sketching in fur. And so you can see already we have this texture now from where those lines are. And I'll do this in a couple of successive highlights. And it gets kind of weird when I have to do it this way because this is my non-dominant side. We just make it kind of work. And you keep your clean dry brush around just in case. Your eraser brush, as I like to call it. For like when you make a mistake, you just come back in and clean it up. Or if one of your lines gets too thick, you can come in and kind of like blend it out. Dallas has shown that a few times. So if I'm going to use this color kind of to highlight up like some really high points, like the collarbones and stuff. But really all I'm looking to do is just come in and add that texture. So I want to make sure that I have a really nice sharp point, and I want to make sure that my paint is flowing really well, which means keeping it nice and moist. You can use a little bit of glaze medium for this if you want to, or a mixing medium, flow aid, anything like that. Anything that's going to let that paint flow nice. But you don't want it to be super watery because you still have to be able to draw. So you're looking kind of for like an ink consistency almost, like pen ink. And then just come in, figure out how you want that sketch to be. So right here I've got too long of a line, so I'm just going to come in and blend it out. You can see how that hash marking is giving us some nice texture. That's kind of mimicking fur. So you just kind of like maneuver the miniature around and figure out like how you want to do it. You can come in and you can actually do hash marks. So you can go like one way and then you could go like the other way. Just want to be careful that it's not melding in together. Because what you're looking for is you're looking for that texture. So you really want that high contrast to get the feel that there's these individual hairs. You see I went way too big there. So I'll just come back through and blend it out with my other brush. So the feel that there are these little hairs coming and sticking out and catching the light and zinging. So we're really just playing with that and then allowing everything else to kind of work to our advantage. So we can come in and we can do the chin. Highlighting the face is a little less of that and a little more of like a classic highlight. Things out. Hit those sections there, get the nose, get that. Come back over here and do some more. So again, it's just really light, quick strokes just to get that texture in. If you go a little too thick, just grab that brush, blend it out. But it should be high contrast. You want this to really like be rough and to kind of stand out so it looks like you got that fur. And especially on those areas where you have a lot of texture, it kind of becomes more like a dry brush and you can go a little heavier on those. You can also flip it and have the fur texture spots go darker. And you can play with it that way to get some nice contrast going on. But you can kind of see like this is just going to kind of be our world for a while, and it's pretty fun because it's almost like a dry brush, except that we're just doing little scritch lines. And you just keep doing little scritch lines and little scritch lines. And the length of your line will change how that texture feels. So you can do long lines, you can do short lines. For something like fur and beast, you kind of want to keep those lines a little shorter. But you can see on camera how we're really bringing that whole fur feel to life by just doing this. And this will take brush control, it takes practice. But you'll find that you pick it up pretty quick. And the nice thing about especially really hairy guys like Beast here is that hair is pretty chaotic, you know, like think about how much and how hard we have to try, how many products they have in stores to manage your hair, to manage your mane. Hair's wild. It goes all over the place. It goes in different directions. So you can kind of be really chaotic with it, and it's just going to feel more savage, more feral, more natural. You know, Beast isn't probably using hair gel on his entire body. It's probably not economical for him. I don't know how much you get paid as an X-Man, but I doubt it's enough for really a whole crazy amount of hair regimes. You see I went too thick there, so I'm just going to come back in, blend it back out. Just come back in and do my scritches again. The hand position is important, so as I do this, you can see that I'm balancing my pinky here on my thumb, and that's giving me the stability so my hand isn't like wobbling everywhere. So again, having a nice base and a holder, and then finding the places where you can put your fingers in order to balance yourself is going to really help with that brush control too. So just thinking about, like, you know, different angles, different ways to come in, where you want to do it. And you don't have to do it everywhere either, right? So I'm going to do a little bit of like classic highlighting on the knuckles. So I'm just going to hit those high points, come in, do that, hit there. Not really going to worry too much about the neck. Get some stuff here. And the harder you push, obviously, the more striking the look will be. So you can also play with that too. The weight of your lines, how much paint you're putting on at once. This is a technique that you can do over multiple different applications, and you can build it up, you know, just using really soft lines. And you can build it. And like I said, you can do hash marks and stuff like that. Getting a little too thick there. Let's just come back through. So you can do lines one way and then come back and do the lines the other way. And that'll give you some really fun like options too. I think at this point though, I'm pretty happy with where I am, at least with this iteration of the color. So I'm going to go back through. I'm going to add a little bit more of my nacre to make it lighter. And we're just going to do one more pass through just to really up that texture. And I like this. I mean, I think this technique is really fun because, again, it's so different from like what you normally do, and it works really well to fool the eye. It can just kind of be like fun to really get in there and do something different. We gave him just a really long straight hair. We'll soften that up. All right, so you can already see how we took those flat areas, we've given them a lot of texture. So we're going to take it one more step. We're just going to add in more nacre, or whatever color you picked. And you can do this with blue. Let me show you the blue. So for example, if you wanted to do blue, it's the same technique. You know, you just use blue, and then I used a blue white, and you can see all my little scritches and my lines here to give them that fur feel. Like down here, how it's blended in and stuff. And then back here, you can really see it on the back because I had a lot of fun with that canvas. And none of that, I mean, none of this is really sculpted in except for the little like rough patches right here. By using that, you just go through and you scritch it up and you'll get this really nice fur texture and it'll look really cool. And you know how to go. So that's what we're doing here. So we're going to grab We're going to go up to our next level of highlight, which we want to be pretty bright. Again, the big trick is just to make sure that it's nice and smooth and thin, because you want it to flow really well. So you want to have a good control off the brush, because it is a light touch. So come back through. And we're just going to kind of follow the same pattern. We're just going to make our scritches a little shorter. I'm going to center around like where we think those zings of light would be. Just like closer to the chest where we have more of that texture sculpted in. It's going to be brighter there. We'll get a bit more up here because we've got the light that's going to hit that arm. You know, the light's going to catch those those fur patches that are sticking out and stuff. My lines are a little thick here because that's a hard angle to do, so I'll just go back through and blend them out. And that's the other nice thing about having that blending brush just readily available to you, is that when you do kind of go a little too far, it's really quick and simple to go back in and turn a mistake into an intentional like choice. So I highly recommend always having one, learning how to switch. It'll become like motor control. And then you won't be able to paint without it because it'll just always be there and handy for you. But so you can see kind of how we're building out those colors and being really like thoughtful in terms of how we're doing our scritches. These ones I'm trying to make even shorter than the last ones because I just really want them to be like spot highlights. There where the hair has really stuck out and our light is zinging right off of them. So we'll kind of go on here and we'll tap in that stuff. Go over here and hit these high points on the muscles. Over here. You could use a stippling technique too if you wanted to, although you wouldn't quite get the hairlines, but it would give you that texture. So there are a couple of different ways to approach stuff when you're trying to do textures and things like that. For this, we're really just trying to like mimic that fur. I'm going to hit these knuckles. Just give them that high point. A little bit of that. There, come back down here. We've got some fur sticking off. With that. I'm not going to worry too much about the feet because nobody's really going to look at the feet, but we'll get that leg just a little bit more. Come back over here. Like this. Scratching some on this underside. Make a mistake, just come back in with that brush, blend it out. My paint is drying out on me. See if we can extend it a little bit longer. The paint wants to really dry out right now. These go in, knock that out, get a little bit of that, Get under here. Let's give it a little bit more brightness. The nose really quick. The face. I just want to get this area just a little bit more. And so this is a thing that you can just kind of like play with the whole time if you want. Figure out where you're happy. I think that's looking pretty good. We have a really great fur texture going on. He's got some nice definition. It looks like he's kind of a mangy beast, which is fine. So let's go ahead and grab a little bit of that black wash. We're going to darken that up because we still have it on our palette. And we're going to do a little bit of differentiation between the hair and the body. So we're just going to go darker on that rather than lighter. So I'm just going to grab that black wash and I'm just going to come in and be pretty heavy with it around the fur. This will kind of make it stand out a little bit more. If you look at that amazing studio miniature that Brendan Roy painted for the photography in the box and stuff, you'll notice that the blue hair, like the tufts of fur, he did in a much darker blue, and that really just gives extra life. It's a miniature by providing a nice lot of contrast. So you can see how we've really darkened up the hair there. And like I said, we can go over here and we can make that same decision on any place where we've got a lot of fur. Just want to make sure that it's purposeful, blended, but especially on those like elbow tufts and stuff. We could do that. A little bit of that way. We can come over here. Do the same things over here. Just kind of give it that dark pop. Tie it a little bit more together. Just using my thumb to just tap off some of that wash, which works perfectly fine, so long as your thumb is still clean. You could also use like a napkin and stuff. Maybe we'll come back down here. Now we'll just kind of sketch in a little bit of difference. I want that to be a little darker. So I can come in and do that. Use my blending brush to kind of blend it out. I'm not really looking to erase what we did, but I just want to like kind of deepen up some of those shadows and stuff, just to give that extra bit of contrast there. And we can kind of like play with that as much as we want, or as little as we want. So what I might do is come in, grab that black, and start my dark lining process. So I really like using a nice thinned out black paint or a wash to use for lining, because it'll catch those crevices and makes it really easy. And dark lining is one of those things, like, you can just base coat a miniature, not do anything else to it, and then go in and dark line it, and it's going to look amazing. So it's definitely a step that can be really important, especially when you have areas that really need that separation, because it gives the eye that natural break. There's a reason that, you know, animated characters and stuff have those really dark lines, or comic books are inked before they're colored, because that separation lets the eye really see and understand what's going on. And the other nice thing about it is you don't have to be super precise with it, because of kind of how shadows and stuff work. And of course you can always take your blending brush and fix it out as well if you need to. But even like between those fingers and stuff, it can be really useful. Just add that extra element of look and feel and everything going on. You know, these feet over here that didn't quite get all the way down there. So our beast is looking pretty good for however long we've been working on him. How long we got? 45 minutes. Pretty happy with that. We'll mix up a quick little orange wash for that yellow. So we're just going to use a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow ink. And we'll just pull some orange. And we'll shade our ochre with this. Now what this is going to do, because it has yellow ink in it, is it's going to intensify the yellow of the ochre, which is going to make it easier to highlight as well. It's going to give us some nice shading and stuff. So I'm just kind of tapping this and letting the ink flow where it wants to. I mean, if you're asking me, Dallas, I think you should do alt. Although, you do love to paint white, and Mystique's got a lot of white on her. Alright, so we got that. We'll hit our blue, so we're going to go back to our base blue color. And we'll clean up kind of this mess over here, where our grays and our blues mixed, because they weren't quite dry. Whoa. You can't see that, but I can. Not that that's why you came. You didn't come for me to describe what I'm seeing. So I'm just taking kind of my base blue, going back through, reapplying some highlights and stuff. Here, I'm going to grab some of my favorite Arctic blue, and I'm just going to add it to my blue, and this is going to give me a nice base to highlight from. So that Mediterranean blue plus that Arctic blue, because that Arctic blue is a nice blue-white. It will let me highlight with the blue without desaturating it, because I still have that color in there. Sorry, went off camera. So you can see how we're just kind of building up in a very classic way those highlights. Again, kind of being a little rough with it, just letting this guy be our experiment in textures, right? So, not worrying about blending it too smooth, kind of letting that lining, it's a little bit, I mean, I'm not even going to pretend like I can do comic book style to the extent that a lot of the folks in the community have done it. It's been amazing. It's not really my style, but same ideas, where you're just using those hatching and that lining to really like bring everything together and make things feel really good. But this will just give us a little bit of extra pop. Hit that. Hit that. Just come in. Do one more little spot highlight. For those areas. Really make that come alive. Whoops. Wipe that off. It's fine. Here. That out is there. So I'm pretty happy with those for our shorts. Those are looking pretty nice. You can always go back through with the wash as well and kind of deepen up some of the crevices and stuff if I needed to, but I don't think that's super necessary for this guy. All right, I need a glasses color here. So give me a glasses color. Somebody, anybody. Boss, glasses color. There's an Anna Simone still watching. We can do the interior of the thing really quick. Do that. So just grab some base red. Come in here. Magenta. Okay, we can do magenta. I got a magenta. He's going to look like an angry librarian, I think. But I can get behind that. I mean, that's effectively what he is, right? Angry college professor. Let that red dry. Magenta. Here we go. Ugh. Alright, so let's come in. Be careful not to get any on our face. I'm concentrating really hard right now. It's so quiet. There's that. There's our magenta glasses. We'll do a quick highlight. I'm just going to use my Arctic blue that's already there because the blue and the red will go nice into a nice poppy little pink. We'll give ourselves some glasses highlights. A little bit more. Get really into that. Let's go. Just do a couple little dots. Looks like he's about ready to go to a rave. All right, and then grab some black. Come in. We'll see if Josh is going to kick me off soon. Ooh, so close. We can do it though. We might not get to the. We not get to the nails, but that's okay. Let's get this X-Man logo colored out. Do our best to preserve our red that's already in there so we don't have to redo it. There we go. He's a very fancy beast. He's a very fancy beast. All right. We'll grab some Thar Brown, which makes a nice kind of bone color. We'll see if we can at least get the first coat on those nails. All right, here we go. Speed round. Let's do it. That. Got a little toenail there. Toenail there. Whoop. Bring it up so you can see the little toenails getting painted. I mean, it's beautiful. Could have done magenta on the toenails too, I guess. Match the glasses. Let's not go that far today. I don't know if we're that crazy today. That sounds more of like a Friday thing. We gotta get his little teethers. So in order to get these teeth, I'm just kind of like coming in and really gently tapping. Whoop. And by gently tapping, I mean making a huge mess. Let's fix that really quick. So again, we're just going to use that blending brush. Blend that away. teeth. I think it's just the claws on this side that nobody's going to ever see. So I'm actually breaking my own rule by painting these, but we're going to do it anyway. Just for funsies. Just to say we did. There we go. And let's highlight our yellow really quick because I don't want to just leave it at that. I want to get to that nice X-Man yellow. So for those who haven't joined us before, Lilith yellow is a fantastic highlight color for that Sahara red, or that Sahara yellow, excuse me. So we just mix a little bit of that, a little bit of that. Just come in and just gonna hit kind of the ups. Oop. Oh, get back on screen. Come back here. Do that. I'm gonna grab my blending brush. Blend it out of the middle a little bit. Just do one more, kind of like nice line, just get that separation. There's our yellow, looking nice and bright next to our blue. We got our X-Men logo. We have our magenta glasses in honor of Simone. Who knows what time it is? I got 3 minutes. Let's finish out these little claws. We're going to grab some Mojave white. And we're just going to go in. And then we're going to show off some really awesome staff picks. So all I'm really doing is, again, just like I did with the lines, I'm just kind of like hitting those points. And get his little teethers. Side always gets me. It's because it's across from my good side. There we go. Let's just give a little dot of white on his lips, just to make those stand out. And that little like lip highlight, so you can see the lips. All right. Ooh, get into focus. There you go. There is our gray beast painted in an hour. So we still have to obviously finish the base, but otherwise, this guy is more than ready to go for the tabletop. And he's looking very snazzy in those magenta glasses. All right, so with that, switch out my roll here. So for our first staff pick for hashtag painting protocol, I really liked this Dr. Octopus done in a very non-traditional color scheme. I love the white choice for the little smoothie tentacles. Just super awesome, and just a really, really cool choice. So really cold, really sinister. Very, very scary, and I thought it was just a fun Doc Ock. I like the color on the base. You get that warmth on the base that really helps sell the overall effect that's going on with the miniature. It's a smart choice there as well, and he's got that comic book look to him. So just a fun I always like desaturated color schemes, to be honest. They're always so much fun. All right, so this one, I'll admit, it's a bit of a cheat. It's the whole spider family, but it's a good looking spider family. So. Just a fantastic, I love the bases, pull them all together. There's some really great color composition choices. The blacks between Spider-Gwen and Venom and Miles. and then a little bit of blacks on Spider-Man himself, really tie everything together. Just a beautiful, beautiful group shot, and they look so good together. It just makes me want to go grab my Spider People and play. And of course, the extra ad of the newspaper under the glass, it's always phenomenal to see. So this was just a really awesome family group shot. So we got to cheat and pick all four. They were also posted separately, but Amy Snuggs, just fantastic work here, fantastic work. And then the last one that I'll be showing off today for our picks is Green Goblin. The animated kind of color bazing on this Green Goblin, this Norman Osborn, is phenomenal. I feel like he just jumped out of my TV when I was watching Ultimate Spider-Man, and now he's a costume in my room. Just the green choices are really vibrant, really bold. It's a very, very keen choice. I love the yellows. They complement those bold greens really well. The purples are really fun. Like overall, this is just, you know, Dallas did a thing on how to make your colors pop at Gen Con, and like this is really color pop. It just blows up. So Hofzinger's fantastic job. Really loved it. And of course, you've got the extra bit of debris on the base that helps sell, and it has the same vibrancy, so it like kind of really jumps off the page. And the smoke, I mean, the blending in the smoke cloud to get the fire on the inside, the smoke on the outside, it's really awesome. So overall, just fantastic. Again, we had so many great entries. There were so many awesome things to see. Can't wait to see what's happening with Spooky. And of course, Dallas at 1 p.m. Pacific will also be showing off some of the rest of the picks, of which there are 3 more to go for last month's challenge. So with that, Professor Beast with his beautiful glasses and his fancy shorts will be saying farewell to you all. Thank you again for stopping by and joining me on this wonderful Tuesday as we did Atomic Mass Translations Live. Be sure to check out Dallas' stream on Thursday, 1 p.m. Pacific, where he'll be doing Mystique. And then, of course, join us back next week as we dive into something a little more slimy, I believe. So I will be back 1 p.m. Tuesday. Otherwise, be sure to check out all of the fantastic news coming at you on our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And of course, we will see you all on the next one. Stay safe, be fun, and be great to each other. Goodbye.